Cześć, dzień dobry. Have a nice evening from Warsaw. Welcome to the CEU Executive MBA Open Day here from Warsaw and online. Thanks to COVID, most of our guests will join online. So will our current participant Lydia Koluk-Zuk, who was supposed to be in the office here at Advantage Austria here in Warsaw, but she will gladly join us online. Shouldn't be a problem these days. I'm Thomas Lamel, the Senior Program Manager of the CEU Executive MBA, and I will guide you through this evening. I will start with the program presentation, and then you will have the opportunity to get to know Lydia, our current participant. Feel free to ask her questions. She will talk about her motivation, why she chose CEU Executive MBA back then. Then you'll have the opportunity to listen to an outstanding keynote presentation by our faculty director, Maciej Kiślowski, on entrepreneurs and governments, a love-hate relationship. I think it's a very current topic. And then we'll move on and conclude this evening with a general Q&A session at the end. At any time during this event, feel free to shoot in any questions that you might have in the chat box in Zoom. And we'll gladly collect them for the Q&A session in the end. Before I start, I would like to to express my gratitude to our partners here in Warsaw, to Advantage Austria, who have in the past have helped us realizing these open days, and with great support here, they do in Warsaw as well. And I would like to welcome Valerie Breitenfeld to talk a little bit about Advantage Austria.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lamel. We're very happy to have you here tonight, online and on site. My name is Valerie Breitenfeld, and on behalf of Advantage Austria Warsaw, we're happy to host you here at our office tonight. The aim of Advantage Austria is to help Austrian companies succeed abroad, and in our case in Warsaw. So we're very happy to also have a little share on that for the CEU. And we wish you all a very pleasant evening, a very interesting evening. And we're looking forward to the talks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is an MBA still worth it? You might ask yourself in these crazy times, because you don't have to go very far these days to encounter that we are witnessing fundamental transformations in the world in a century. In 2008, we've seen a big financial crisis. In 2015, we've seen a large refugee crisis. And right now, we're still in the biggest pandemic in over a century. And these changes are part of a much broader set of transformation that is taking place. And some of these transformations are positive, but some of them are pretty dangerous. So one key question is, how do you as business professionals prepare for this challenging and unpredictable environment? And the next obvious question is an MBA the way to do it? We've seen an explosion of online education in the past 2 years, and I'll show you why we believe our MBA is still worth it. So if you're interested in further education, if you're interested in an MBA, you usually start searching for an MBA in the city you live in. What you tend to find is mostly a pretty standard curriculum. The faculty who are delivering the program are mostly local, or let's call it regional, but not really international. The number of international students is relatively low because of the program structure. And some programs in Western Europe can be quite expensive, starting at 80,000 euro of tuition or even more. But a local program allows you not to leave your job. So if you contrast this with the top business schools in the world, they often have a very differentiated curriculum. They have a very mission-driven curriculum in most cases, and they offer a certain expertise and a certain perspective in their curricula. Because of their full-time format, their student body is international actually. But you are leaving the labor market for 1 or even 2 years, which is another financial burden for you. And these programs are rather expensive at more than 120,000 euros or even more. And in addition to all that, you might need to relocate your family as well because you're leaving for 1 or even 2 years. So what we do at CEU is to offer the best of 2 worlds. There is no work interruption, thanks to the practical and flexible modular format. I will talk about it later in the presentation. The Executive MBA is mission-driven. I will talk about the Executive MBA for the Open World philosophy later in this presentation. We have an international student body because of the modularity of the program. Participants can fly in, can fly out, which is a major advantage of the program. And according to the Times Higher Education, we are the 2nd most international university in the world, which is reflected on every single level of university. So just to introduce you to a couple of our faculty members, for economics, you'll have Mark Kaufmann, an expert in applied theory with a PhD from Harvard. Or if you're new to finance, Joy is a uniquely gifted educator. Generation after generation of our students tell us how she's just unique in explaining complex financial concepts and teach you the linguistics of finance and accounting when you're a starter, when you're a beginner. Or the course on big data and artificial intelligence. It will be taught by Miklos Koren, one of the leading scholars in this field in Europe with the Harvard PhD. Or Professor Aisou with a PhD from Central Florida. She's an expert on marketing and especially in emotional marketing. If you're already experienced in finance, you'll be placed in the advanced track course with Adam Zawodowski, a leading expert on complex investments with a PhD from Princeton. Or for leadership, Austin, our world-class psychologist with executive education experience on 4 continents. He will lead the way. Sophia Baranier, a PhD from LSE. She's an expert on the future of work. She can tell you lots of insights on automation, artificial intelligence, and robotics. Or for strategy, you'll have Yusuf Akbar, who has taught in more than 40 countries and advises leading Fortune 500 companies. And last but not least, for innovation, you'll have Mike Labelle, who holds a prestigious EU Jean Monnet chair. Here are some examples of our visiting faculty. Professor Selos from Stanford University, an expert on innovation, or Miklos Savary, an expert on digital marketing coming from Columbia. Professor Hernandez from Berkeley, Hui Chen from the University of Zurich, and Milena Nikolova from the Behavior Smart Center. She's their Chief Behavior Officer. So here's what the program looks like. I told you it's a modular format, and it's a 10 module program. The dates you see on the screen or here on the wall are not going to change. So you can basically plan your studying around professional and family activities based on these dates. As you can see, we have 3 modules in the first year. It's the first row on the top of the page. 4 in the second year, and 3 in the third year, which gives you full flexibility and a balance in your life. As you might have noticed, we are piggybacking around popular European holidays, like November 1st, May 1st, or August 15th, when it's easier for you to take time off and use a long weekend to join our modules. In the summers, that's the column in the middle, our bespoke and cutting-edge leadership program takes place in Budapest, and you'll have the opportunity to benefit from electives from the faculty in the world we invite to teach your classes. So one day, there will eventually come the day when you finish with us and join the CEU alumni network from around the world. As I already said, CEU is the 2nd most international university and you can rely on an active elite network on every continent with more than 18,000 professionals connected in this network. We have city-level chapters, we have country-level chapters. Basically, wherever you are in the world, wherever you go in the world, you'll find a CEU alumni chapter to interact with. And thanks to social media, thanks to groups on Facebook and LinkedIn, it's easy for you to reach out, make new friends, use professional contacts, or just mingle in the city you're in right now. This is a network that you can count on, and one of the key assets that we have. So the question is, how are we able to offer such a high quality program at only 29,000 euros of tuition? The answer is pretty simple. It lies in our founder and benefactor, George Soros, who created CEU with the mission to promote open society. Just recently, George Soros made a further contribution to CEU's mission by offering another $1 billion in endowment to create the Open Society University Network, which means we are the best endowed university in Europe. So what does the Executive MBA for the Open World mean? What makes CEU unique? First of all, when we talk about the open world, we mean skepticism towards dogmas, towards hierarchies and privileges, both in context of how we teach, but also with regard to composition of the cohort. Diversity is key to creating a successful program, and it's not an empty marketing catchphrase for us. I will talk about it later. Secondly, we believe in debate and radical rational thinking. Every idea can be challenged, because we believe in facts and arguments rather than narratives and fake news, because it's narratives and fake news that create polarization in our societies these days. And we believe the best way to challenge this narrative-based discourse is to make arguments based on facts and realities, which is the hallmark of Karl Popper's definition of open societies. We are fundamentally opposed to all kinds of discrimination, and we actively promote diversity within our program. As I already said, it's not just a marketing thing for us in order to have a more beautiful brochure. Diversity is key of our learning experience. You will be in a class with fellows from around the world, from 5 continents, from various professional backgrounds, from the corporate field, from entrepreneurship, from the public sector, from the NGO, from the engineering, but also from human rights activism. And the way we finance the scholarship means we create opportunities for people who traditionally have not been able to actually join such a program. And one thing that makes us unique is that we see managers not just as people who deal with businesses or resources, but we also believe that managers go beyond that. They're positive change agents. Whatever their professional background is, whatever their linguistic background is, everybody can contribute to strengthen open societies. So what does the CEU Executive MBA classroom look like? In the current cohort, we have 65 managers with an average of 14 years of work experience, including a minimum of 3 years leadership or managerial experience. As you can see from the background image, we use state-of-the-art classroom technology and setups in order to facilitate discussion and interaction in class. We make use of case-based learning rather than traditional lectures that you would find in local MBA programs, because we want to take you, experts in your specific field, from this level of functional expertise to the strategic level. So here you have a slide on the top quality online experience, because thanks to Corona, every participant can choose to join online if traveling is too dangerous for you, or if you have any underlying health conditions, if you know, there's any obstacles that prevent you from participating in our on-site learning experience, you are flexible, you are free to choose to join in for the online participation. We have invested in studio-grade microphones capturing lecturer, not just the lecturer, but also your participants, because we think that the learning experience is not just a one-way street from the lecturer to the fellows, but also from the fellow to the lecturer and among fellows. You would be surprised how much you will learn from your fellows and not from your lecturer, or with regard to additional knowledge, of course. We have invested in large screens and high quality cameras. We have created physical virtual breakout rooms for support teams and personalized virtual backgrounds, and offer high quality individual support on every level of your experience with CEU. So this is what the physical virtual breakout rooms look like for the support teams. As you can see, they don't just show the people's faces and their names, but they're color-coded as well in order to show you the support teams. Those are the support teams that you will be placed in for group work and modules. Please consider that I've talked about diversity already so much, but taking into account diversity in this context, you'll be placed in a support team with people very diverse from your background. So you will not be placed in a group with people from the same country, with the same language, coming from the same industry, because that wouldn't create an exchange of ideas. You basically would listen to the same stories you already know. But listening to people with different approaches, with different perspectives, different experiences, sometimes in countries you haven't even heard about so far, that could be very interesting for your learning experience. So as I already said, the tuition is 29,000 euro. If you compare it to our competitors, it's ridiculously low. But thanks to our financial endowment, we are in the lucky position to pass on this financial advantage to our students and participants, because we want to democratize higher education and we don't want to put another financial burden to our participants. Scholarships and fellowships are available. Of course, this presentation is not the best place to show all the scholarship and fellowship options that we have, but you are free to book a one-on-one consultation with me, and I will advise you on your financial support options in a private meeting. As I already said, online participation is possible. It's no big deal if you want to participate online, if traveling is inconvenient, etc. We have, in order to defray your other costs, we have special rates negotiated with partner hotels in Vienna and Budapest, and we have negotiated discounts with Lufthansa and Austrian Airlines. So I would like to invite you to join the open world. Help us strengthen the open world. The application deadline is March 27, and the application starts right here on our website. I strongly encourage everybody to apply as soon as possible, because we have a first come, first served policy in place. So the sooner you apply, the sooner you're able to reserve your study seat and avoid competition. As I already said, you're invited to book an individual one-on-one consultation with me to discuss online via Microsoft Teams or Zoom your individual needs, your questions on the application process, on the documents, and on the scholarship options that we have. So I think it's one thing to hear about the program from our perspective, because, you know, we are passionate about the program. We know the program so well, but it's another thing to hear about the program from people who have done the program already or are in the program right now. And this is why we invited Lydia Koluka-Zuk, a Warsaw-based executive, to this open day. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here tonight because of COVID restrictions, but we're lucky to see her join via Zoom. Lydia is former head of public affairs at Pelion Pharma, and her current position is vice president of the management board at Forum Energie. Lydia, if you could tell us about your background briefly, like where you're coming from, what your professional and background is, what you studied, and what your motivation was to join Executive MBA back then.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for your kind invitation, and thank you very much for joining. My name is Lidia Kołcka, and I am a lawyer. Currently, I work as at the organization which is called Forum Energii, and I am a member of the management board there. This is an NGO foundation that is working on the climate and digital and energy transformation. I decided to join to continue my education at CEU 2 years ago, when I decided to somehow enhance and develop my professional career. And CEU and Executive MBA was an obvious choice for me, because the whole structure of this program is designed in such a way that it's very easy to combine the professional career, the work, and education. So it was quite easy decision for me to make, because I could continue my education and at the same time to work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Could you tell us a bit about your cohort, like the diverse backgrounds, not just with regard to nationalities. I think our people have heard that CEU is the second most international university in the world, but more about the diversity when it comes to personalities and professional backgrounds.
This is the beauty of this cohort, because in fact we represent various sectors. We have people from non-profit organizations, we have people from business, from various sectors from business. We have people from aviation, from energy sector, and transport, marketing. So the cohort is very diverse.
I think this needs to be pointed out when you contrast this program to other reputable programs. I'm not bad-mouthing any other programs. They're out there. They're excellent MBA programs, but I think this Executive MBA, because of the credibility and the reputation of this university, is very attractive. Not just to, of course, it's attractive to corporate people, but it's also attractive to people coming from the public sector, from the NGO sector, and from the human rights activism. I think you won't find those people in other programs in Switzerland and Germany. First of all, because of tuition, and second, that's just my personal opinion, many people wouldn't feel welcomed in such programs.
Exactly, and this is extremely important, because I can tell you even now that I use experience of my colleagues in my everyday work right now. It's extremely important that I can reach them, I can talk to them, and this background is really the crucial thing. So this is really, as I said, the beauty of this program, and the most important part of this program, that you can talk to the people from various sectors.
Yes, it's basically the network that you can count on in the future, because it's your cohort. Of course, we have an alumni network of 18,000 professionals around the world already that you can easily reach out to. But, being in class with your fellows and, having that bond is something else that you will have once you finish with us. Just to give you an example of the diversity in class that we have people flying in from 5 continents in the current cohort, despite the COVID situation. I think this shows the trust and the trust in CEU people have. And people are flying in from as far away as Vancouver, Vladivostok, India, the Middle East. We have 1 participant from South Africa, even 2 Australians in the program, and of course, Western and Central and Eastern Europe and North Africa. But people are they're not just reflecting different nationalities, they're also reflecting different professional backgrounds. We have a museum curator in the program, we have a medical doctor in the program, we have entrepreneurs in the program, we have, of course, accountants in the program, we have engineers in the program, people coming from arts and culture and NGO. Everybody is welcome, and everybody will benefit from this Executive MBA, because you need to understand that everybody has achieved their level of functional expertise already on their individual level, but they want to move to the strategic level. And that strategic level is necessary wherever you are, in whichever position you are. If it doesn't make a difference if you're in a corporate at Pfizer Pharma or in an NGO in Kazakhstan, at some point you are becoming a leader and you would need to learn the skills to lead a team and to understand the language stakeholders talk to you. You're necessary to understand the balance sheet as much as you are required to understand supply chain management, big data, sustainability, the global economy, the interlinkings, because this mosaic of pieces help you make a decision that you would need to make when you're an executive.
If I may add something, Thomas, if you allow me, I just would like to underline that the program, the curriculum is designed in such a way that it's extremely interesting. It's done in a very modern way. It reflects really the changes, the ongoing changes in the world. So from the curriculum point of view, it is a very, very interesting program, but also it is done in such a way that we are very grateful to the university, because university did everything to make this program accessible and easy to participate under such a difficult circumstances that we all experience these days. So I really would like to underline that we do not feel that we suffer because of COVID and all these pandemics and pandemic limitations, because the program logistically is done in a perfect way, and we are very grateful for all the safety measures and everything that you've done for us so far.
Well, you're already addressing the elephant in the room, which is the COVID situation. I'm pretty sure I will collect this question sooner or later in the chat box, and will collect it for the end of this evening for the Q&A session, because I'm so sure somebody will ask that question about COVID measures, etc., and the online participation. So we'll talk about it at the end of the open day for sure. Lida, if there's something else you would like to talk about, you've mentioned the academic excellence, you've mentioned the diversity, you've mentioned the network. You've basically sold the program already.
I just would like to tell that if there are any questions to me and somebody would like to approach me after the open day, I am absolutely available to all of you guys, and you can find my profile online at LinkedIn, and I am more than happy to answer all questions you may have. So anytime, and I would be more than happy to talk about the program, curriculum, classes, cohort, logistics. All questions are welcome.
Thank you very much for this initiative. I would like to emphasize everybody, encourage everybody, feel free to reach out to CEU alumni and participants in your region. You can find our current cohort on Facebook and on LinkedIn. Feel free to ask them about their experience. We're transparent with nothing to hide. I'm sure that everybody will recommend the current program, and I think it's more authentic expertise on the experience than coming from me. Just feel free to reach out to Lydia. We will be happy to give you feedback on the strength and the weaknesses of the program. Thank you, Lydia. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us, even not here in Advantage Austria Warsaw office, but you're joining us from home. Thank you very much for your
participation. Thank you very much, and I'm sorry that I cannot be with you, but again,
so
thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to move on to the next part, to the academic keynote presentation by Professor Maciej Kiszlowski, who would have been in Warsaw as well, if not, of course, it put a spike in our he's the CEU Executive MBA Faculty Director and Associate Professor of Law and Strategy. He's got a PhD degree from Yale, an MBA from Princeton, and an MBA from INSEAD. He published disciplines in management, law, and political economy, and he's an advisor to governments, international organizations, progressive political movements around the world, and a frequent contributor to international media, including Politico, Project Syndicate, Foreign Policy, and the Wall Street Journal. And Maciej will talk about entrepreneurs and governments, a love-hate relationship. Thank you very much. The floor is yours, Maciej.
Thank you so much. Hello, Lydia. Hello, Thomas. Yeah, I was quite surprised when Thomas asked me to do this talk because I am literally the only Polish professor on faculty here. So I thought, like, why would I speak for Warsaw? But I appreciated the subtle irony. Some of the participants of this open day may know me from criticizing, rightly so, Polish government on Polish TV from time to time. But today I'm not going to talk about Polish government at all. I'm going to talk about a completely different and fascinating issue about changing narratives around entrepreneurship. And I would be happy if you have questions. If you disagree with me, please feel free to drop your comments to the chat. Thomas will collect them. On first glance, the situation is very clear. Everybody, all the governments love entrepreneurs. EU's SME strategy is basically calling small and medium-sized enterprises a backbone of the EU economy. Angela Merkel in Munich famously reminded all the SMEs that we were very grateful, but also remember about how we help you, the political frameworks that help you. So it's a true sweet love relation, you would think, between governments and politicians and businesses. Well, not quite, because when you look at actual data, and the most well-known data set here is compiled by World Bank, the so-called Doing Business rank. First of all, Poland is not here because my slides are horizontal, not vertical. So the list ends at 29 and Poland is 40. But like, as I said, I'm not going to talk about Poland too much today. I just want to say that Europe in general, continental Europe, is not doing very well in this survey, in like objective measures of governmental support for entrepreneurs. You see a lot of course, Anglo-American countries. You see Nordic countries. You sometimes hear, oh, they are socialists, Scandinavian countries, but actually they are very good supporting entrepreneurs. You have some small countries like Georgia, famously, is made huge effort to be entrepreneurial friendly, but Germany is 22nd, Austria is 27th, and and there are not that many. Actually, you don't have any sort of continental non-Nordic countries at the top of this list. And then, as I said, Poland is number 40, and actually that's an improvement over the past. So, why is it so? Why and how is it going to evolve? Is everybody going to be, per this first slide, is everybody totally sold that this is the goal? Government supporting entrepreneurs is a goal, and we just need to fix the issues to get to the goal. Until very recently, it was quite that. So basically, just like going up in this rank, becoming more entrepreneurially friendly was basically the unquestioned political objective. The question was how to achieve that objective, but the objective was not questioned. This is changing, and that's the main message of the talk, because many of you who are entrepreneurs may depend on governmental support, on those policy frameworks that Angela Merkel mentioned. So it is important to understand that over the last few years, there is this trend to kind of question whether this, blanket support to entrepreneurship is even a good policy. One famous scholar who is discussing this is Thomas Piketty. He basically calls the discourse of entrepreneurship dangerous. He calls it an excuse of the huge inequalities that we face in the world, and to kind of as a stamp of approval for the winners and stamp of disapproval of the losers in this unequal world. And Thomas Piketty is a very, very influential economist. Another influential economist, I will briefly mention Poland, although I said I won't. Mariana Mazzucato, the most favorite economist of Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki, is actually talking quite a lot about what she calls the cult of smallness. The idea that we somehow like small and medium-sized enterprises because they are cute, because they are small and nice, but actually we need to, she argues, look at the data and see if they really are what politicians like to claim, or until recently love to claim. They are the engine of our economies. And interestingly, this is all the recurrence of the old debate that started with kind of the intellectual father of entrepreneurship, thinking of entrepreneurship. I'm obviously talking about Schumpeter. And Schumpeter actually is known for this idea, and especially in kind of liberal circles that are still quite popular in Poland. Schumpeter is known as the kind of author of this term creative distraction. The idea that the small and medium-sized entrepreneurial ventures are really important in economy because they destroy the old bad habits and create new habits. His famous quote from the 1911, a long time ago, was, "It's not the owner of state coaches who build new railways." Yes, so okay, we don't have stagecoaches anymore, but the idea is very clear. Very few people until recently, until this kind of new skepticism about entrepreneurship, remember that there is another work on Schumpeter, much later actually work of Schumpeter, where he actually kind of walks back his idea of creative distraction. And he actually says that it's more important for economic growth to have big businesses that have, capacities and knowledge and know-how to actually push the boundary. And we call this alternative, Schumpeter Mark II or version 2 idea, creative accumulation. And he says in his later work, as we inquire into where the progress was most conspicuous, the trail leads to the doors of the big business. So, actually, researchers in entrepreneurship tried to assess these two hypotheses empirically, because you can do it with empirical research. You can just study it and see. As I said, for many decades, that research didn't really quite impact politicians, but that research about whether creative distraction story or creative accumulation story is really more accurate description of the reality, this research is not conclusive. And if anything, when you look at this research, it's kind of more tilted towards the second view, the non-sympathetic view towards SME. So, for example, a well-known study from the US by Halvigander and other shows that there is no relation between size and employment growth. There is a lot of literature on firm size and productivity, and a lot actually of this suggests that SMEs are less productive, not more productive. And again, it's because they don't have know-how. They need to kind of reinvent the wheel. They are much more amateurish oftentimes. There are some studies that suggest the opposite, and there are some studies that suggest that SMEs are more productive, but also more risky. Family firms' performance, I mean, an important part of SMEs and European entrepreneurial activity is family firms. Again, actually, family firms are found to perform slightly better, but only if they are already big and publicly traded. So when you have those accountability mechanisms that we know from big business, when they are SMEs and privately held, they actually perform worse. Size contingent regulations, so regulations that exempt small and medium-sized enterprises from some obligations, are almost uniformly viewed as harming workers and introducing distortions. And all of this is research before COVID. Yes? Now think about a mixed bag and the kind of benefits and strengths and weaknesses of SMEs, and add to this the COVID pandemic. Now, who is weathering COVID pandemic better? And there are already studies that suggest that it's actually not SMEs. A US data set shows that SMEs employ 45% of workers, but were responsible for 62% of losses after COVID hit. Another US data, 47% of mid-sized firms stayed healthy compared to 33% of small firms. A very poignant study, again the US data, that small and medium-sized enterprises owned by African Americans and immigrants experience largest losses. Why this is very poignant and concerning? Because the one subtrack of this like entrepreneurial narrative is that it's the way to lift up disadvantaged minorities who are discriminated in big business. So maybe the entrepreneurship can lead them. Well, that shows you that, that there are limits to this, yes, and that actually they may be, those disadvantaged minorities may still be vulnerable as they lead entrepreneurial activities. Another Canadian study shows that women-owned business feel disproportionately higher percentage of workers. And the policy response is also a mixed bag. The US Payment Protection Program, which was much more friendly towards small business, not correlated with infections or unemployment rates. But German Kurzarbeit program, which is much more geared towards larger companies, much more effective. One additional data set, US data, again, earning hit, so which employees of which companies are hit most. And again, SMEs employees are hit the most with their earnings because of COVID. Yes, so this is adding to the already mixed bag, and now we have kind of very concerning data from the COVID pandemic. And again, I am not arguing here. The topic here is not quite about whether entrepreneurship is good or bad, but I am saying governmental policymakers see this data, and that can fuel these narratives that is much more skeptical about entrepreneurship. Now, there is still this heroic narrative about entrepreneurship in the media, in business press, and I think a very, very good example of this was the BioNTech Pfizer development. So as you surely know, the BioNTech Pfizer vaccine was developed by this cooperation between a startup company from Germany and a giant pharma company from the US. Now, an interesting aspect of this is that the media really reported both sides of this deal quite differently. On the founders of the BioNTech, Dr. Sahin and Dr. Turecci, there were these glowing portraits. You can see I showed you the cover of the New York Times profile, which emphasized that which is true, that they are children of Turkish immigrants, that they founded the company in 2008 based on research, and it created this enormous progress. Now, at the very same time, the media was reporting on CEO of Pfizer, Dr. Albert Bourla, in a very different way. There was a lot of talk about Bourla selling millions of stock just after the COVID vaccine news, raising ethical questions, supposedly, suggesting that maybe something untoward was going on in this case with the cashing of the stock options. And even if you look the photos, yes, the juxtapose the two photos, you have, Dr. Bourla doing some testimony, facing questions, maybe need to answer for some allegations, and you have this heroic profile of like open collar Dr. Sahin, just ordinary next door people. Well, that story is not entirely true, because actually Dr. Bourla is also an immigrant, a Greek immigrant who made an impressive career. He worked for Pfizer for 27 years, including as global vaccine chief. And kind of, if you think this is a David versus Goliath, it's not clear who is David and Goliath, because, Dr. Bourla did cash 5.6 million, which is a lot of money, stock sales, which were approved in August 2020, so way before the vaccine news, as a part of predetermined sales plan. His net worth is not bad, 26 million, but compare it with the heroic next door scientists, Dr. Sahin and Dr. Turecci. The week of the announcement of the Pfizer vaccine, the week when Mr. Bourla sold 5 million worth of stock, the net worth of Dr. Sahin increased by $500 million, and he is worth 4.5 billion with a B. The last time I checked, many times more than Mr. Bourla. And of course, now we have a little coda to this. We see that Pfizer now is again showing this robust research potential by coming up with this very innovative drug, which it will be sharing with some poor countries. So again, the stories that you see on first glance are not always true. And one more time to emphasize, I'm not here to argue what you should think about entrepreneurship. If you want to remain an enthusiast of entrepreneurship, absolutely more power to you. But I want to say that there is no policy consensus on entrepreneurship, and the policies can change in the future, because the data is not, it's not a clear-cut case that entrepreneurship is the future of growth in places like Europe, especially since more uncertain world may limit entrepreneurial opportunities. Larger companies with larger infrastructures can simply weather those crises more effectively. What is it for you if you want to? What's the takeaway for you if you want to build a company? first of all, we teach you at CEU Executive MBA to use scenario planning, and I would always advise prospective entrepreneurs to start with scenario planning. So imagine your startup without governmental help, without that entrepreneurial support grant that you are counting on. Is your business model dependent on continuous support through some public aid, or can it stand on its own 2 feet? And also, do not assume, coming back to what Thomas mentioned, do not assume this is the last crisis that we face. It's just another crisis that we face, yes? In my course on non-market strategy, I will also talk how you can react to those changes proactively, not only take the governmental environment as given, but try to shape it. Take a critical view at your idea. I mean, if you are the next Dr. Sahin and you have a groundbreaking vaccine idea, I think entrepreneurship is definitely a way to go. But I think it's like another idea for organic candle or an online yoga training that like are a little more questionable in those uncertain times. And finally, consider intrapreneurial options. There is a lot you can do within large organizations who still want to develop new ideas and develop new products, and many aspects and excitements of entrepreneurship can be realized that way. Now, the final thing I want to mention is what this little presentation tells you about CEU and CEU Executive MBA. I hope it showed you that we give you a critical perspective. And we give you a critical perspective on everything, including on American business practices. So don't expect that just because we are an American university, we will be, apologists of everything American. Actually, it's a very typical thing of feature of great American campuses that they are very critical of what's going on in America, and we are generally critical of the reality behind us because we think that's the key to understanding. That's how you understand the big picture. It's also important to understand that I am speaking here, although I am a faculty director of the program at the moment. Currently, I'm speaking as purely just like one faculty member here of the many. And it's very important to understand that in American universities, on American campuses, faculty, can't agree on whether it's raining outside. We have so many different perspectives, so many different opinions, and I just that's why I want to highlight it. I wanted to show that we actually at CEU have an award-winning, extremely exciting innovation lab, an incubator, which helps our executive MBAs and other members of community to do precisely what I was cautious about, to develop your ventures. And they have a very strong pro-entrepreneurial view, and that coexists with some people who are more skeptical. And we are still, great colleagues and community members, and you get a variety of choices. It's not, one dogma that's imposed on you. We are focused on what's practically relevant. We always try to get you to those takeaways. We are research-driven, but it leads to practical conclusions. As I always say, a good executive program teaches you how. A great executive program teaches you why, in addition to how. And we really focus on the why, and we make you think and engage with those ideas. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, do let me know.
I think we already have some questions from the audience. May I just look? but they are concerning the program itself. So I'm moving this Q&A session. If you guys...
Lydia, do you agree with me or do you disagree with me? What do you think is the future? Are governments going to love entrepreneurs or they will soar on entrepreneurs? What's your take?
You ask me?
Yes.
I think it will stay the same, that from time to time they will love entrepreneurs, but they will from time to time use them for their own purposes. So it will, this love-hate relations will last.
It's possible, but I do think that I think that the thing that has changed is this volatility in just like the general environment. We will add climate change, and the question is, will the current data doesn't bode well. I mean, it seems to be showing that more entrepreneurial, smaller ventures are simply, because of the weaker infrastructure, less embeddedness, fewer reserves of human resource capital, that they are more vulnerable to those shocks. Yes, and that can also draw a lot of talent, which today is still kind of excited with this idea of becoming next Dr. Sahin or Turechi. Many people may move towards the safety, frankly, of bigger organizations. If those crises that Thomas talked about become, like a periodic occurrence, like every few years you have a crisis, you can have a lot of people who will start factoring it in their decisions on whether to go the entrepreneurial route. And so I think, yeah, go ahead.
No, I would love to talk to you about it, and because I think it's a very complex issue, and honestly speaking, I don't know whether I am able to predict how the future will look like, because definitely the role of entrepreneurs and companies will change, because a lot of things will depend on the business as well. Like, for example, if we are talking about the climate catastrophe and how we will mitigate the risk of not reaching the net zero goal, without the cooperation between the public administration, the business entrepreneurs, it will be not possible, because we all will have to contribute. And definitely it will have enormous impact on the business, right? Because on various levels. So it's very complex. I agree that it will cause a lot of troubles for the business, and therefore it will also have impact on individuals who will decide whether they should run their own business or not, right? And how to plan. So
exactly.
A question from our participant here in Warsaw. Could you refer to Asian experience? For example, policy. How important is such perspective?
Can you repeat, please? Sorry.
Yeah, I couldn't hear.
Could you refer to Asian experience, for example, Chinese policy? How important is such perspective?
Yeah. So it's interesting, because current Chinese policy, that's a fantastic question. Current Chinese policy is basically, in many ways, pro-entrepreneurial, because it's about, punishing and subduing big, very successful privately owned companies. So not SMEs, but the basic narrative is, we do it not to dissuade people from running businesses, but to kind of level the playing field. Yes, and now, of course, the reality is, in my view, different. Yes, the reality is that Chinese Communist Party want to simply reassert their control over the economy. So I think the narrative of supporting small businesses against the big Alibaba groups is just an excuse to go, full back to kind of state capitalism and very heavy state control. So no, I would definitely. So and it's the part where the participant asked what I prefer. I don't think I want to say what I prefer. I think the relevant thing for executives is what are the likely moves of governments that are going to take place. So the predictive aspect of science, I think, is of the most interest for executives, because if you simply want to have like an educated guess, I agree with you, Lydia, it's always a guess, but you can have uneducated guess or educated guess. Yes, and you know, we analyze, we dig through this data and understand the processes behind how politicians use this data for their political advantage to construct policy proposals, because we want to predict the future. We want to make the best guess of what next environment is going to be. So I'm not sure I prefer the Chinese approach, but I think, you know, Chinese approach shows that in an authoritarian setting, a government is more comfortable with all those moving parts, with all this volatility. The government is simply more comfortable having the decisive say in how the market works. And when you look at democratic countries, you won't see the same trend. The government of Germany is not going to, put in jail, the CEO of Porsche Group or Volkswagen Group, unless they really break the law. But what I think maybe a slight similarity, let me emphasize slight similarity, is that even in the West, governments may start realizing that maybe it's more manageable to kind of organize economic policy around big corporations, which are, if they get convinced that they are more able to withstand all those shocks. Lydia, you are very patient. You wanted to comment.
Maybe not even comment, but I just would like to advertise a bit that, if to our panel, to our guests, and if you decide to choose the executive MBA at CEU, you will be able to choose among, many others electives, the elective on geopolitics and strategy, and you will be able to discuss all these issues with us in the class. And I think this is a perfect opportunity to talk about it.
Thank you very much. I think that was the perfect conclusion of this part of the evening. In view of the time, we're moving on to the Q&A session. I collected a couple of questions from the audience so far. Please apologize if we're not able to answer all of your questions. We're trying our best to group them and to answer them all. There has been a question from the online audience. How is the interrelation with public governance and diplomacy part of this program?
Well, I mean, thank you so much for the question. That's my topic, yes, and a unique way we do it. Like all MBAs in the world include usually a course on sort of political economy and business. At Harvard, it's called BIGI, Business, Government, and International Economics, and a business law course. A kind of innovation that partly comes from my background in those three disciplines that Thomas so kindly mentioned, is that we have one course called non-market strategy, which is kind of problem-driven, not method-driven. So we think about how you can interact with your non-market, governmental, social environment through a variety of tools. And it's sometimes challenging because we scholars for sure, but even sometimes when you are a student, you like the kind of predictability of being in one kind of, I'm in the legal mode, it's a law class, or I'm in a political economy mode, it's a politics class. And the non-market strategy class kind of takes you out of this comfort zone, and you need to quickly change the toolkits, within like one session, yes? So that's how we do it. We do it in a kind of very integrated, problem-driven approach, which is, how do you manage your social governmental, actively manage your social governmental and policy environment.
Thank you very much. I have collected a question for you. You mentioned the elephant in the room. Can you please elaborate the impact of COVID measures on our program and how we are dealing, how Executive MBA is dealing with the COVID pandemic?
Yes, and I was very grateful for kind words of Lydia, because we spend a lot of time doing everything we can in a very open society, which means, as you said, Thomas, fact research-based ways to save every last opportunity we can to have you on campus physically. You see all those nice and comfortable chairs here, and we want you to sit in them and be here. And we were the first university in Vienna that launched mass antigen testing. So basically, everybody who came for the module was antigen tested in fall 2020. I know it's ancient past, but actually at that time the antigen tests were only introduced. We've been continuing antigen testing every second day ever since, and we are now exploring. There is new exciting research on rapid PCR tests, and we are exploring those options so that we can keep our participants safe, but on campus. Yes, you can always join online. That's why we have all these, microphones everywhere here. But we understand that, many of you want to have this personal touch and this personal experience. And that's why you do this, and not a Coursera course. And so that's our approach, to do everything possible to keep you on campus. And I'm very, very happy to say that we had only one fully online module since the start of the pandemic, which is, I think, quite an achievement. Because many of our competitors who, as you say, find programs and charge very large tuition, basically went online for like a year. We never did it. I mean, you always could join online, but people who wanted, except for one module in March 2020, when it was just legally impossible to do this, we always try to open doors and do everything possible to keep you safe.
Thank you very much. The next question I would like to take it is the question on the application process and application requirements. So as I said, the application starts online if you meet the criteria, and the formal criteria are pretty simple. We would expect you to have 8 years of work experience, of which 3 years are in a leadership or managerial role. You would need to have an undergraduate degree and to present a proof of English, unless you're a native speaker or your degree was fully taught in English, then you're exempt from this requirement, of course. You would need to upload a resume and a motivation letter, of course. And you would need to indicate 2 references who will upload 2 reference letters in the ongoing application process. So once you've applied for the program, I will check your documents for completeness and correctness, and you will be invited to a timely interview with one of our faculty members, and based on a fixed questionnaire, you will be, we're trying our best in that limited amount of time to get to know you, to get to know your experiences, to get to know your motivation for this program and what you can bring to the program and how you would benefit from the program. And just in a couple of weeks, you will receive an admission decision. So we're inviting everybody to apply right now. If you applied these days, I'm pretty sure you will have the admission decision before the winter holidays, before Christmas. The next question is again for you, Maciej. It's are there any exams, or is there a thesis?
Oh, yes. So there are exams, and the exams are, that's another unique feature of this program. So basically, we don't spend your precious time during the module on anything but the exchange of ideas, group work, discussion, learning. So exams are taken off the module and you take them online. We have like a 10-day exam period where you can simply do an exam at any point that you want. The only condition is once you start it, you need to finish it in a predefined time, 2 or 3 hours. Exams are basically early in the program. As you move with the program, they are almost entirely, if not entirely, replaced by projects, the team projects. You mentioned the teams, and they are such an important role in the program, and the team projects are kind of something that kind of takes over the place of exams later in the program. We have a thesis, but it's not a real thesis. It's an applied project which is called the Capstone Project, and the basic idea of this is you apply what you learn at CEU to a real life situation. So we don't want you to, write a magnum opus. We just want you to show 2 specific applications. One we call the strategic analysis component, and that's basically you being able to apply the lessons from the program into an analytical situation, a report to a business, a white paper. That actually can be your magnum opus. Like we have participants who are writing a book in this part, but most people do something analytical but applied in their companies or in other in other businesses or organizations. And the second part is called the leadership component, and that's an application when you show that you can actually change something or someone, yes, mentor someone, or maybe even do a sequence in which you first analyze the strategic analysis component, and then you apply what you analyzed into an organization. So those 2 together give you the CEU approach to thesis, and the goal is for you to show that you can apply what you've learned here.
Thank you very much. In view of the time, I would like to move to the last question of this session of tonight's event, and I'm happy to take it. It's the question about financial support. Are there any scholarships available? A clear yes. CEU Executive MBA is happy to offer financial support to our students. We don't consider scholarships and fellowships as charity, but as investment in your talent. And it's part of our aims to encourage diversity in the program. We have basically 3 streams of financial support. The first one, let me briefly introduce those 3 streams to you, is the Open World Scholarship, which aims at people who have done anything, achieved something in very much aligned to our mission in defying barriers, breaking glass ceilings, breaking hierarchies, dogmas, just to give you a narrative about that scholarship. The second one is the non-competitive need-based scholarship, which only takes into consideration your income situation and the country of residence, because it makes a difference if you're a marketing manager in Germany or in Ukraine as far as your income is concerned. This is non-competitive, the need-based. And the third stream is country-specific merit-based fellowships, which are competitive. We have just established a new fellowship here in Poland with the Polish Business Roundtable. Feel free to check the information out on our website. Of course, I mean, we have so many fellowships for business women, for LGBTIQ managers, for female managers in the MENA region, for managers with a disability, for Romani and Sinti managers, for social mobility in Germany. It might be confusing for you, but feel free to book a one-on-one consultation with me and get personal advice on which scholarship would which better fit to you and where are the better chances for you to get it, because this, cannot be dealt with in a program presentation. This needs to be discussed in an individual setting. I've just shared the link with you. Feel free to book a one-on-one consultation with me if you have any additional questions, or if you would like to optimize your application. For as now, I would like to thank Maciej for the keynote presentation. I would like to thank Lydia for her time and commitment. And I would like to thank everybody who joined us online and on site. Thank you very much. Good night from Warsaw.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.